We're the Young Indie Chroniclers podcast, and we're producing a new feature-length documentary, George Lucas, The Lost Golden Age.
George Lucas was going to do this Lawrence of Arabia scale epic on a 16-millimeter budget.
You got a chance to have the same adventure making the show as what Indy was doing.
His stuff is really quite political.
You didn't think I was going to run, did you?
I learned that when George says he wants to ultimately change or fix something, that he was going to do it.
We built a Kickstarter campaign to support the film. Late pledges are available now at Kickstarter.com.
Hello there. Welcome to Force Ghost Conversations. This podcast is your home for cozy deep dives into all things Star Wars and Lucasfilm adjacent properties. This is your host, Anthony King, and each week I will be joined by fans, creators, and believers in the principles from the galaxy far, far away to discuss the thematical elements from our favorite Lucasfilm properties. And without further ado, it is time to gather around the campfire for some Force Ghost Conversations. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to a special midweek edition of Force Ghost Conversations. Yes, you're probably like, Anthony, you just released an episode a few days ago. Well, that's because we have a special episode for everybody here today where we are talking about the intersection of Star Wars and politics for our real world. And of course, we have an amazing guest with everybody here today. We have Representative Dr. Anavi Eskamani from the Florida State Legislature, as well as a mayoral candidate for the city of Orlando here on the show. And, we're going to hear about how Star Wars has impacted her life, both personally and professionally, and what we can learn as just everyday people out there in the world from the galaxy far, far away so that we can be the best citizens and stewards of this world that we have today. So I really appreciate everybody for listening. This is a really special episode. So I can't wait to dive into this with everybody here. Now, just some general housekeeping, because this is where we would typically do the news and everything that's taken place in the Star Wars and Lucasfilm adjacent galaxy over the past weeks. But because we just released an episode a few days ago, we've covered all the news. So anything else that comes out, we'll tackle in this Sunday's episode, which, by the way, guess what? Spoiler alert, is going to be about Maul Shadow Lord episodes 1 and 2. So make sure you go watch those on Disney Plus, and then get ready for our conversation on Sunday. So no real Cloud City gossip this week. And before we get into our main topic discussion, just always want to hit upon the ways that you can get in contact with the show. Of course, we are available on X, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Threads, Blue Sky. Just search for Force Ghost Conversations, of course, and we'll be there and would love to continue the conversation with you all about both politics, Star Wars, Maul, anything, frankly, that's going on right now. And in addition, can't forget, we also have a Patreon, which for as little as $1 a month, you can get access to a ton of different Force Ghost Conversations goodies. And we also have a TeePublic store where you can get merchandise for Force Ghost Conversations. You can get that Force Ghost Conversations hoodie, that t-shirt, that pillow, that phone case, right? Anything that is available on our TeePublic store, go get it. You can get it in our Star Wars logo, our Indiana Jones logo, our Willows inspired logo. All that's available on the platform. Links are in the episode description, of course, and I hope that you go check it out then. All right, that's enough of me rambling. Let's get into our main topic discussion with Representative Dr. Anavi Eskamani, all about politics and Star Wars. Stay tuned. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to a very special episode of Force Ghost Conversations. And, we say a lot of things on here on this podcast, but one of the things we say most often is that war and politics go hand in hand. And you can't have Star Wars without a lot of star politics at the same time. And we're here to talk about that with an actual politician. We have from the Florida State Legislature and also a mayoral candidate for the city beautiful herself, Orlando, Florida. We have Representative Dr. Anavi Eskamani here. Anna, welcome to Force Ghost Conversations, and how are you doing?
Thank you so much for having me, Anthony. It's so great to be here. I feel like this will be very therapeutic for me as a big Star Wars fan.
Great. Well, we're glad to have you here. And, I'm just outside of the Orlando City area myself. So it's a thrill to have you on as a representative of this great state. And also, I believe you're also you have your doctorate in public administration too, and I got my master's degree in that from GW. So it's great to have that connection on that front too.
That's amazing. Oh, that's so great. I love that.
Me too. Me too. Well, let's dive into our topics here for discussion today. And I want to hear about your personal journey with the galaxy far, far away first. What was the first Star Wars movie you saw, and what are your memories of that experience?
Well, I have to tell you, my dad is who I credit for giving me Star Wars. So both of my parents were immigrants from Iran.
Hmm.
They came to this country at different points in their lives and actually met working in the same donut shop in Orlando.
Nice.
So true American love story. And I think for many immigrants, finding opportunities to experience American pop culture helps them feel more connected to our country.
Yeah.
And it's this pathway of feeling accepted. And so my dad in particular, he came to this country when he was 16, and he carried a lot of challenges and trauma with coming to this country at a young age. And so diving into American pop culture was his way of feeling more American.
Hmm.
And we used to have a library card. I mean, I still do, but back then.
Yeah.
And I remember our public library started having VHS tapes, and then DVDs, et cetera, et cetera. So we rented a lot of the classics, like from the library. But then my dad also was a huge like Harrison Ford fan. I mean, who isn't,
All
right?
right. Yeah, I know.
And so he's the one who brought like, go to Blockbuster, like got the videos, and then eventually when some of the remastered episodes came back out, my
Mhm.
dad, I remember he bought the VHS trilogy set because he also worked at Disney part-time on the weekends.
Mm,
And so he would get a 20% discount on merch there. And so he bought that trilogy set, which I still have at my dad's house somewhere.
nice.
And I think, all of that was kind of like a reawakening for me to get into Star Wars. Because I probably got to watch those when I was I would say about 6, 7 years old. I'm trying to remember what years they came out because I was born 1990. And I
Mhm.
remember when the Phantom Menace came out. So the first Star Wars I've ever seen was A New Hope, which I'm so grateful that A New Hope was the first ever
Yeah.
movie that I got to see. And, because obviously the next generations of kiddos, like for them, it's often Phantom Menace or, right. Everyone has their entry point. Maybe it's Clone Wars, what have you.
Sure. Yeah.
But for me, it was the OG. It was the OG. And I just fell in love with this story. Now, granted, my brother, I have a big brother.
Mhm.
So he's also a huge Star Wars fan. But he's also a big gamer. And so some of the other activities that my twin sister and I would do with my brother was to watch him play video games. And so in addition to the movies, to be clear, we also were big, Lucas Games
Oh,
household.
right up my alley.
So,
Yeah.
so from TIE Fighter to Jedi Knight
And
to
Shadows of the Empire and
Correct. And I
yeah.
played the Republic when I was older.
Oh, yeah.
And it was so good. And then to segue a little bit, like also all the other LucasArts games, right? From like Day of the Tentacle to the Indiana Jones games and
Mhm.
so many others, like, under the same banner. Like oh my God, there's so many great uh childhood memories from this entire genre. But yeah, so it was a combination of the movies but also watching my brother play video games, and that all kind of brought together my love and even obsession for Star Wars as a child. I remember trying to use the Force. Like I would
Mhm.
try to use the Force to like turn off a light switch and stuff like that. So yeah, it was so foundational to my imagination, as a child.
Absolutely. And that's beautiful. I love it. It's the full gambit too, from the VHSs all the way to like the N64 cartridges. We've got it
Totally.
all, the whole gambit. And
And the
that's a
sauce, on your on your IBM 486. I'm only 35, but when I talk like this, it makes me feel like I'm so much older because the technology has changed so dramatically in our lifetimes. I know
totally.
if there's like Gen Z's listening, they're like, "Is this girl 65? Like, how old is she?" It's wild.
You'd be like, nope, it was not that too long ago, actually, that VHSs were one of the most popular forms of
Yeah.
entertainment and physical media. It's coming back, folks. It's coming back. Well, that's a fantastic origin story for this. And I'm curious, do you have a favorite character? And it might not even be from the films. It could be from like the expanded universe too, since you're very in depth into it.
I have to tell you that my childhood crush will always be Han Solo. So, I mean,
Passed
huge
down
Han
from your
Solo
father
fan.
to you.
Exactly. I mean, I'm watching Shrinking right now too, which Harrison Ford is in. He's so good. He's so
Mhm.
good. And so yeah, like I've always loved the anti-hero hero.
Yeah.
And candidly, I'm someone who never wanted to run for office ever. I didn't grow up thinking of running for office. I've always kind of stepped up because no one else would. And so I think there is like a just a character trait that I kind of see in that
Right.
in his approach and his rise, his archetype as a hero. With that said, as someone who has also, of course, watched Andor, um, I just love the character Cassian. I mean, it's just such
Mhm.
an incredible series. My next tattoo will be an Andor tattoo, without a doubt.
Nice.
And so I definitely, admire and also appreciate that series and the main protagonist because what I find so incredible about both these characters, right? Han Solo and all the characters in Andor is that none of them really have the Force, right? Like
Mhm.
they're just
Yep.
everyday people. And so there's something really relatable to that where it's like you don't have special powers, but you do some pretty special things, right?
Yep.
And so
Yep.
like that has always resonated with me in the sense of anyone can do anything. And so I love those characters for those reasons and more. But I also loved, like, as a kid, I loved Ewoks. Every
Who doesn't?
every teddy bear I had, I said it was an Ewok.
Mhm.
I refused. I was like, they're not bears, they're Ewoks.
That's
So
right.
yeah, I mean, obviously, a lot of great characters to love and to admire, but I would probably name those two for me.
Nice, nice. And never underestimate the great murder bears of the galaxy and
I know! All the shenanigans, I know.
Exactly.
It's amazing what harm they can do.
Totally. You can never underestimate those guys. They'll come get you. And that's ultimately Empire's downfall is they underestimate
So
the
true.
the true power of community.
It's so true.
Um, well, I did notice in doing some prep for this episode that a few years back you experienced a connection in the Force with Mark Hamill,
Oh my god.
leading to his public support of your campaign. So, as a fan of Star Wars, how did you feel seeing your name uttered in the same sentences as Luke Skywalker?
Honestly, like, one of the best days of my life.
You're like, what?
And I also have a recording on my phone of Mark Hamill telling me, "May the force be with you, Anna." And I just have that as, like, a reminder, of staying hopeful and staying strong. And the way that went down, by the way, and it's so, like, sad where Twitter has gone because I feel like I'm not that active on Twitter anymore, and I just feel like it's, like, a bunch of blue check marks that are spamming you and so forth.
Yes.
And so when Mark Hamill and I first connected, it was on Twitter. And I think Twitter, was once seen as this, like, democratizing platform where, like,
Hmm.
a little girl like me can, like, connect with a celebrity and hero to so many, like Mark Hamill.
Right.
Um, and literally it was during the COVID years, if I remember correctly, and there was a photo of me at a canvas outside, wearing a Rebel Alliance hat, like a cap. And I must have tagged him or something. I don't remember. But what I do remember is that he liked it. He hearted it. And I just started freaking out. I was like, did Mark Hamill just like my tweet? And then that like snowballed, right? And there was a Democratic Party virtual event happening in Florida. Well, it was virtual, but it was focused on Florida.
Sure.
And a party person reached out to me and said, Mark Hamill is requesting that you be part of this event. And I share that because, to be real with y'all, like, the Democratic Party has never been like my number one cheerleader. I mean, the people are, but like the institution, just because like I don't sign on to everything the party does. Like, I'm focused on my community, and sometimes that means providing a contrast. And so, I try to be a good team player, of course, but there's
Hmm.
just never 100% alignment. And so I'm not, and I don't really engage in party politics statewide. I do locally with my local party, but not so much statewide. So there's always reasons why, like, I would not expect the party to invite me. You know what I mean? To
Right.
play a
Yeah.
role. They invite me to attend, but I don't expect them to invite me to speak. And it was literally Mark Hamill that used the Force to get me on this program with him. And I was just like, he knows who I am. Like, that's wild. And so, since then, as you noted, he spoke on my virtual kickoff event back in 2021
Hmm.
and sat through the entire program. Like, most cases, and I'm guilty of this too, right? You're busy people, busy schedules. You pop in and you pop out, right? You pop in for
Right.
what you speak, and then you got to run and do your other things. No, Mark Hamill stayed the entire time of our kickoff and
Wow.
watched my speech, watched other people's speeches. And one of my twin sister, took a screenshot of his face watching me speak. And like, I had it framed in my
I was gonna say, I hope you
office.
have it. Yeah.
Oh, I have it framed in my Tallahassee office. Like, it's so extra. Um, and so, with that said, we've been able to stay connected, obviously, since then. I've actually never met him in person before. It's only been a virtual experience. And so I'm very hopeful that I'll have the chance to meet him in person and just thank him from the bottom of my heart of all of his support, not just of me, but of so many strong leaders and candidates around the country. Like, he gives so much to us, and
Hmm.
I never feel like he gets enough gratitude for that. So many other celebrities don't do that at all, and yet him and his wife Mary Lou, and his daughter, his whole family, like, they're just so
Yeah.
intentional in showing up for their communities and for people like me all the way in Florida. So I'm just so grateful.
Well, that's fantastic, and I hope that very soon you're able to have that in-person meet and greet so that you can use the Force together and achieve great things.
I love it. I love it. If you're listening, Mark, please let me know when you're free.
Yes. Also, tell me, Mark, if you're listening. I would love to know if Mark Hamill's listening to this podcast.
We'll have to tag him when it goes
Yes,
live.
absolutely. So it's clear that with the prequel trilogy, George Lucas had a lot to say in terms of politics. One can even assess that the story of Star Wars, if you're starting with the Phantom Menace, all begins because of a trade dispute. Never heard of that starting a whole political thing before. With that particular trilogy, why do you think that George was so keen on making the rise of fascism a key point to address?
That is such a great question. And I think a part of it is that, history repeats itself.
Hmm.
And there are so many themes in Star Wars that obviously it takes place in a galaxy far, far away, but the themes are right here on planet Earth. The
Right.
themes are in modern history. And he is telling us a story, but he's also teaching us lessons. And when I was watching, for example, Andor, and just the Ghorman,
Yes. Yeah.
fabricated conflict to lead to a reason to kill innocent people. The entire time, I'm like, I mean, I'm getting goosebumps because you're sitting and you're at the edge of your seat, but you already know what's going to happen because it's happened so many times, right? And it happens today where there's like manufactured problems and boogeyman scenarios and scapegoating to get away with something, often get away with more power and more money and so forth.
Hmm.
And so I do think that George Lucas, as a creative, as a storyteller, as a director and artist and producer, is trying to tell us something, right? That these are not just stories for us to be taken into a world away from our own, but it's really an opportunity to reflect on our world and what are the values and the lessons that we can bring back to how we treat others. And it's always so interesting to me because when I talk to colleagues in legislature, there's a lot of Star Wars fans like across the political spectrum, right? But for whatever reason, like, this story arc isn't always registered by every person, and it's like really important to teach
It
that to
is.
folks, right? I mean, like, there are so many similarities. I mean, especially when it comes to imperial officers and Secret Service, and I mean, even just the dress, right? Like, the way the artist crafted their their uniforms are very similar to what we see in our own lived histories. And so,
Hmm.
I think it's such a powerful effort, especially to teach young people, right? And one of the
Yeah.
lines that has always, stuck out to me in the prequels is, you know, uh, uh, Queen Amidala speaking to "This is how democracy dies with a round of applause,"
Hmm.
because I feel like I witness that almost every day in the Florida legislature, where you're applauding a bill just passed, the governor just signed it into law to give the cabinet the power to designate organizations as domestic terrorists, which
Hmm.
sounds fine on paper, but the reality is that they're going to label organizations that dissent from the state, that expresses speech they don't like. They're going to be able to label them as domestic terrorists and issue sanctions and expel students who promote, using air quotes, promote them. And it reminds me of, most recently with the tragic loss of two different protesters in Minneapolis, Renee Good and Alex Preddy. It reminds me of how they were quickly labeled as domestic terrorists to downplay their deaths.
Yeah.
And so this bill passed the House floor, and there was a round of applause for it. And it's like a clear First Amendment violation. It's a clear attempt to censor free speech. And you sit there and just like, how could people even applaud this? Right. And so, like, there are just so many themes that are, watching as when I saw Revenge of the Sith, I was probably 14 years old, and none of that necessarily registered with me at the time.
Hmm.
But obviously, as I got older and you reflect on it, it's just it's so clear. It's so clear,
That's right. It all starts with Hayden Christensen. You're like, oh, yeah, nice looking fellow on screen. And then, oh, the darkness of fascism is just so
right?
slowly creeping in here.
Oh my god.
Um,
And
and
Andor, I know I keep going back to Andor, but like
oh, you should.
thank you. Andor does an amazing job and also going through like the mechanics and the bureaucracy of fascism, right? And of course,
Deliciously too good. Yeah.
right, exactly. And it also like reminds you of spies and like, just because someone's in the system doesn't mean that they're supportive of the system. So I think that's a reminder to not like assume, right? Make
Hmm.
any assumption about a person's values regardless of where they find themselves, so forth. But I do love like that behind the scenes look of, oh, this is what a bureaucracy of fascism looks like, right? And the weaknesses that you can try to poke at, right? And efforts to stop it.
Yeah. I mean, it all starts with bureaucracy and meetings, right? It's a meeting to discuss genocide, right?
Right.
As it was in real life, right? With the Wannsee Conference in Germany.
Exactly.
These things just don't happen overnight. They are planned and methodical. And that's exactly
Got
what
it.
George is putting on display here, especially with the prequel trilogy, is that like, you know, uh, democracies are handed over to
Yes.
fascists. And usually as you mentioned in the great quote that Padme says, right, is it's not through violent uproar and uh, that means of sorts, but it's usually just handed over by like a guy just getting it and slowly accumulating that power over time. And that's the case with Palpatine. And fortunately, time after time, we're seeing that more and more with authoritarian, totalitarian, fascist rule, whatever ism you want to say. But anything that suppresses people and keeps a certain group and class higher above others that are just constantly one upping each other to get to the next step and continue to consolidate and grow their power, then that's the clear lesson that George is trying to showcase here through this fun space opera science fiction adventure of sorts.
Got it. No, so well said. And the point that you made too about it being premeditated, right? And it doesn't happen with one swoop,
Hmm.
right? It's like this like meticulous and steady approach, and it happens before you even know it because
Yeah.
you ignored all those earlier concerns, or you were able to find reasons to not panic about it, and so forth. And I'm a firm believer in you know stopping the issue before it
Before it becomes a
snowballs.
problem.
Right, exactly. But it can be really hard to inspire people to do the same unless they feel directly impacted.
Hmm.
And that's always been the challenge, I think, in any social movement, is that a lot of folks don't engage until they feel directly impacted. And I mean, honestly, like there are examples of that in Star Wars too, right? Like even the Han Solo archetype, not wanting to get involved until he personally benefited, and then
Yeah,
choosing to join the rebellion despite the fact that he would be fine without choosing it, right?
exactly.
So you need that type of allyship too across the board.
Exactly. And I'm thinking of in Rogue One, for example, Jyn Erso is like, it's not a problem if you don't look up. If you don't see the
Right.
the flags above you of the Empire, like you just can go and live your life until it bothers you, and then it's too late.
Totally. Totally. Oh, well said. Well said.
Well, as an elected representative yourself, are there any lessons that you've learned from Star Wars? I think you've mentioned a few already here, but if you want to extrapolate any further, please go ahead, that you apply to your everyday work.
So we talked a lot about like political lessons, but I also want to talk about just values, right? And just the way that we treat one another and the importance of friendship and loyalty.
Hmm.
Because those are some other themes for me that give me a lot of inspiration and hope. I mean, first of
Yeah.
all, whenever I walk into the Capitol, I jokingly tell myself that like I'm walking to the Death Star. 'Cause you're walking into the heart of everything, right? Like, for those who don't know, Florida State Capitol is in Tallahassee. It's about a 4-hour drive from Orlando, and it's not just where the legislature is. Everything in this building includes the Florida House, the Florida Senate, all of our offices. It also includes the governor's office, the attorney general's office, the ag commissioner, the CFO. So all these like leading figures, right, in Florida politics are located in this one building. So it really
Hmm.
is like the heart of Florida's like political statewide institutions.
Yeah.
And so when you walk in, sometimes you don't feel like you belong, right? Especially if you
Mm.
don't come from a political home. I'm a working class daughter of immigrants. Like no one ever thought someone like me would be in office. And again, I never thought I would be in office. And so I never took that for granted, but I also realize how monumental that is. And I reflect back on, the bravery of characters like Luke Skywalker and making a choice to go,
Yeah.
with Ben Kenobi into an environment that he had never been to before, right? And so this notion of being brave has always
Mm.
been a sense of just purpose for me and motivation for me. The strong bond of friends, like I think that has always been a clear um mantra in Star Wars is you don't leave anyone behind. um the unlikely allies, that
Mm.
is something that sticks with me too, and I kind of referenced this earlier, but I try really hard not to make assumptions about someone just based on their reputation or based on their party. And I've had the chance to work with organizations that are of a different political background than me on paper, but we actually have a lot of alignment on different issues. And so you build those unlikely allies when you can. Um, what else comes to mind? Oh, okay, scrappiness.
Yeah.
Scrappiness, right? Like the Millennium Falcon, you just work with what you got, and you embrace that, and you're proud of that, right? But I
Hmm.
do think like the scrappiness of using spare parts, right? And making it work despite the odds. I think that is another theme that has impacted my personal life and my professional work. Um, so those are just a few examples. Also, like, how about just strong feminine power, like
Got that
Princess
right.
Leia, right? As a not your typical princess, right? Like, and obviously Carrie Fisher will be known forever as a strong woman in her field and someone that will inspire generations of actresses and comedians and so forth. But her archetype too is really inspirational as an independent woman that doesn't need a lot of help to get things done, but she also leads others to that goal. So yeah, quite a few examples I can think of, but beyond the political storytelling and themes, I think there's just so many lessons for every kid and every adult to take away from.
Yeah, those are all awesome, and that speaks to the beauty of Star Wars and the fact that it's this mythology that it continues to inspire everybody, no matter what age or background you come from. It's meant to give us that inspiration, that hope to be better people at the end of the day. And you mentioned that the strong female characters that come up through Star Wars, but also the braveness at the end of all things too. And you mentioned Princess Leia, also General Leia, Organa in the
Yes.
sequel trilogy as well, and Senator Organa as well, and the New Republic. But also keeping the Andor love going, like a character like Mon Mothma that stands up in front of the
100%.
Empire and says great quotes like "The death of truth is the ultimate victory of evil." Like,
100%.
to
Oh
stand
my
up in
God.
front of the entire galactic Senate and to say something like that, so brave and so bold that it's true and to the point, but no one, out of fear, they're afraid to applaud and
And
stand up with her. Yeah.
doing it knowing that like her life is at risk.
Yes.
And there's so much similarities to today because I can't tell you, especially here in Florida, how many politicians are scared to speak up
Hmm.
because they might be removed from office. And so they're
Wow.
like intentionally choosing compliance and silence versus speaking out because they don't want to lose their seat. And like, what a perfect example of a woman brave enough to say, I'm going to do what's right, even if that means losing my positional power and even losing my life. And
Everything.
that entire sequence of, her escaping, like, oh, so good.
Chef's kiss.
It's
Very good.
watched it many times, many, many times.
And many more times, unfortunately, because people aren't getting the lesson across the globe.
Right, right.
But for the people that are getting the lesson, what do you think that people can look to in Star Wars for inspiration in addressing the many issues of today and in the future?
Oh, it's a deep question. I mean, I feel like, first of all, we want our kids to have imagination.
Hmm.
And I do worry about social media, feeding not just into bias, but like creating an environment that's very toxic for our children. That's
For sure.
kind of focused on what I would say the shallow things, right?
Hmm.
And to that point, there's a lot of media content out there for children that does not help build up leadership or build up character. I mean, I should mention I'm a big, PBS Kids
Support your local
dude,
PBS, folks.
100%. I mean, I still watch Arthur episodes. Like,
Yes,
it's
yes, we
so
do as well.
nostalgic for me, and I have it on the background. And when Mark Brown created Arthur, he also created it for parents to watch with their kids. And so that's my first like piece of advice is when you're watching any piece of the Star Wars universe or reading, because I've also read, many,
Hmm.
many books in the Star Wars universe, like, create that as an opportunity to connect with your loved ones. Like, don't just put a kid on a screen and walk away, right? Like, I think there's so many powerful, and I see this all the time, like dads and moms like passing their love for Star Wars onto their children, and then when it comes to MegaCon or Halloween, like everyone's in character. Another powerful story I'll share quickly is one of my friends. Um, he is a returning citizen, so he committed a crime. It was involving a financial crime at a bank and so forth, and he ended up serving time in prison. Star Wars became how he and his brother reconnected
Mm.
because his brother mailed him Star Wars books to read while he was incarcerated,
Oh, okay, great.
and they started talking about them like over the phone, and it not only became because they used to be very distant, so not only did it build this relationship between the two of them, but now they like both love Star Wars, and they were just at MegaCon, and just those stories I think are more and more examples, right, of how this can be. It's not entertainment, it's like so much more than entertainment, right? Like,
Hmm.
it really just becomes like a part of who you are and your values. And so to use it as an opportunity to like not just, like I said, get an hour of your kid so you can get all the work done, get an hour of them focus on something, but like use it as an opportunity to build family, build connection, to reflect on those values, to talk about these characters, to embrace the stories that are being told. Obviously in age appropriate fashion, because some of these themes
Right,
are a little bit
right.
darker. But but yeah, like I think that's what I would recommend as like step one is that when you're introducing friends or children or others, like see it as an opportunity to share in a passion versus just like a distraction or entertainment. My other thought too really just stems from how can we like translate those lessons into real life. And again, I think about caring for those who have the least. I think
Hmm.
about injustice and standing up to injustice. I think about diversity. I mean, when you walk into Mos Eisley, it's like every type of critter and there is,
I
right?
mean,
Like
yes, yes, yeah.
is and that is like so intentional, like by the filmmakers, right? To kind of mimic not real life, but also mimic an establishment that everyone from all backgrounds are welcome and are together,
Hmm.
whether they get along or not, right? Um, and so yeah, I think there's sharing those values and um y- finding ways to live those values. I for me it has always been a priority. And candidly, I find a lot of I don't know how to describe it. I mean, obviously one of the strongest quotes is, rebellions are built on hope. I
Hmm.
just find that to be so true. And like when I'm feeling down in this moment, like I will literally play parts of the Star Wars soundtrack and listen to John Williams' incredible masterpieces as a source of like finding that resilience and that resistance in you to keep going. And so I think there's also a lot of just like TLC one can find in these themes and in connecting with the stories that are Star Wars.
Absolutely. And it's a generational story, and its art is meant to be engaged with. And when you're doing it with the right ways and having the right conversations afterwards, there's so much to mine from this that continues to be that wonderful well that we can keep going back to each and every day for something new to inspire us to grow and ultimately to be the best version of ourselves that we can be.
100%.
Well, Anna, this has been a fantastic conversation, and it's been so great to hear about your journey with Star Wars and how the interwoven nature of politics, Star Wars, and the real world actually is. Where can the folks find you, the listeners that are enjoying this podcast right now? Where can they find you online if they want to continue the conversation or just keep up to date with everything that you're doing around Florida, around the country, around Orlando, etc.?
Oh, well, thank you so much again for having me. This was such a joy, especially in these really hard political times, to just take a moment to talk about Star Wars and my childhood and just a reminder of like why I do what I do. It was a really great timing because I needed that boost tonight.
Wonderful.
Um, if folks want to stay connected with us, there's a lot of ways to do it, but I think the easiest way is probably at Anna for Florida or at Anna for Orlando on Instagram and Facebook. And I'm active on all the social media platforms for the most part. But Instagram is probably where I share the most content. And so those two handles will get you connected to us.
Excellent, folks. Please go give Anna a follow and continue to stay up to date with all the fun things that she's doing around the area. And, folks, we'll be back on Sunday with a brand new episode talking about, guess what? Maul Shadow Lord, the brand new series on Disney Plus. So I hope you caught up with it. If not, you have a few more days to go check it out. And until then, may the Force be with you. Take care.